In a decision that reverberated through Buckingham Palace and across the Commonwealth, the British royal family issued a formal proclamation removing Prince Andrew and Prince Harry from the official line of succession, a move characterised by royal aides as unprecedented in modern history, yet unavoidable in today's climate of accountability and transparency. The announcement, delivered at precisely 11 a.m. via the royal household's official website, was both clinical and symbolic. It stated that, with unanimous approval from His Majesty the King, Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, the House of Windsor has undertaken constitutional measures to restructure the line of succession. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, along with their direct descendants, shall no longer be considered active members of the royal succession. Within minutes, digital confirmation followed. On the royal family's official website, both men's profiles were quietly but decisively altered. The once ceremonial HRH, His Royal Highness, prefixes vanished. The sections detailing their positions within the royal hierarchy were either revised or removed entirely. No announcement of a formal ceremony accompanied this digital purge. No photo ops, no farewells, just a cold, administrative reality reflective of a monarchy adapting to the expectations of a new media age. And with that, a royal era quietly ended. Under the newly enforced royal protocols, titles and privileges extended to family members by association will also be rescinded. That includes all courtesy titles, peerage references, and stylings for spouses and children that were originally granted under the presumption of continued royal service. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex by marriage, is no longer entitled to use the title in formal capacity. Their children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, who once enjoyed symbolic royal recognition, are now styled as Master and Miss Mountbatten Windsor. Similarly, no members of Andrew's immediate family will retain associated formal honours. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie will maintain private life engagements, but have been asked to step back from any remaining public-facing royal patronages. The language in the decree was intentionally absolute. All honours not constitutionally protected by Parliament, but granted under sovereign privilege, shall be considered nullified unless otherwise stated by the Crown. Though King Charles III's name appeared at the foot of the statement, royal insiders make it clear, this was not a solo decision. The driving force behind the purge was none other than Princess Anne, known in palace circles as the last Spartan. However, for years, Anne has been quietly positioning herself as a moral compass within the family, blunt, incorruptible, and entirely loyal to the crown above personal sentiment. According to sources close to the Privy Council, it was Anne who first called for an emergency internal review earlier this year. Her reasoning was rooted in 3 words: duty, discipline, dignity. As Seigneur Courtier noted, the Princess Royal sees monarchy as sacred trust. In her view, a crown tainted by scandal cannot stand. She sees Andrew as a tragic error and Harry as a rebellious liability. And she's not sentimental. She doesn't believe family name alone earns forgiveness. Princess Anne's stance was reportedly reinforced by Prince William, who has privately expressed concern over the blurred lines between celebrity and monarchy. His growing influence over the institution is evident not only in his public duties but in his increasing presence at internal briefings, typically reserved for reigning monarchs and senior regents. The timing, too, has raised questions. Why enforce such a sweeping decision now, especially with King Charles's health remaining a matter of discreet concern? The answer, insiders suggest, lies in legacy management and the roadmap toward William's future coronation. On October 14th, just 3 days before the official proclamation, 2 of the most revered symbols of monarchical power were quietly transferred into William's personal custody. The sovereign's golden spur, a relic from the 12th century symbolizing knightly virtue and royal legitimacy, and the rod of equity and mercy, a ceremonial scepter passed only to the designated heir in periods of impending transition. Though the transfer was not publicized, it is understood to signal Charles's preparation for a smooth succession and a monarchy free from reputational landmines. Prince Andrew's downfall has been slow and painful. After years of speculation and legal embarrassment over his association with the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, Andrew submitted a formal letter to the king in September requesting the relinquishment of his hereditary titles. The letter, described by a royal aide as sorrowful and succinct, acknowledged that his continued association with the monarchy was a distraction from its mission. He has relinquished the title of Duke of York, granted upon his marriage in 1986, the lesser-known Earl of Inverness and Baron Killyleagh, and membership in the Order of the Garter, one of the oldest orders of chivalry in Britain. The move has been met with mixed public reaction, some interpreting it as a long-overdue act of accountability, others questioning why it took so long. If Andrew's fall came slowly, Harry's erasure has arrived like a quiet but decisive blow. Following his 2020 departure from royal duties, often referred to as Megxit, Harry's gradual alienation from the firm has been one of increasing silence. The 2021 Oprah interview, the publication of Spare, and the Netflix docuseries all marked clear breaks from the institution's code of discretion. But what shocked even his harshest critics was the moment HRH disappeared from his online bio. In royal symbolism, few acts are as cold or as final. This week's decree confirmed what many had long suspected. Harry is now formally outside the system. His ceremonial duties will now be absorbed by Prince James of Wessex, son of Prince Edward and Sophie, and the last grandchild of Queen Elizabeth II, to still bear the working royal status. James, just 17, will begin accompanying Princess Catherine and Prince William on select engagements, a deliberate nod to the future continuity of the royal line without the Sussexes. Inside the palace walls, the real architect of this royal reckoning is not the monarch himself, but the woman long regarded as its moral bedrock, Princess Anne. For decades, the Princess Royal has operated with relentless discipline and little tolerance for sentiment. She attends more royal engagements than any other member of the family, travels with minimal staff, and refuses to indulge in personal drama. In an age of oversharing and scandal, Anne has become the monarchy's most trusted symbol of discretion, grit, and duty. But in this moment, she has become something more: the enforcer. Behind closed doors, sources say Anne issued what many now call the Wessex Memorandum, a private advisory report addressed to King Charles, Prince William, and key members of the Privy Council. In it, she outlined the urgent need to cleanse the royal line of figures whose presence caused reputational harm or institutional distraction. The memo included specific concerns: the unresolved nature of Andrew's scandals, Harry and Meghan's continual leveraging of royal titles for commercial gain, the risk of public disillusionment, especially among younger citizens and Commonwealth nations. Anne's proposal was blunt. Titles are not souvenirs, they are responsibilities. If one rejects the responsibility, they must surrender the privilege. While Charles hesitated, torn between fatherly instinct and kingly obligation, Prince William aligned instantly. As the future king, he reportedly viewed the move as essential, not only for optics, but for the survival of the crown in the era of live streams, Reddit threads, and TikTok debates. The recent months have revealed a dramatic evolution in William's public role. No longer just the Prince of Wales, he now operates as the monarchy's executive stabilizer. He attends Privy Council meetings, consults with senior diplomats, and personally approved the symbolic handover of the Golden Spur and the Rod of Equity and Mercy. These were not mere ceremonial gestures. They were code language inside the royal household, indicating a soft transition of operational authority. As one court insider put it, William now guards the house while Charles guards the crown. And it is William who will oversee the reintegration of public duties once held by Harry, with James, Earl of Wessex, by his side, representing the next generation of working royals committed to duty rather than notoriety. Anne's approach is not without controversy. Critics call her too rigid, too loyal to tradition. But many royal historians argue that her clarity is exactly what the crown needs. By removing Harry and Andrew from the line of succession and extending that exclusion to their descendants, the House of Windsor is sending a decisive message. This is not a family business, it is a national institution. What remains is a slimmed-down royal core: Charles, William, Catherine, Anne, Edward, and Sophie. A team viewed by insiders as scandal-free, hard-working, and aligned with constitutional roles. The purge is not personal, it is strategic, and for Princess Anne, it is principled. She has always lived by a quiet mantra passed down from Queen Elizabeth II. Be seen, not heard. Serve, not seek. And now, she applies that code not only to herself, but to the very structure of monarchy. The old guard may be fading, but the new order is unmistakably hers. If Princess Anne provided the force, and Prince William the direction, then King Charles's role was defined by silence, a silence both strategic and deeply personal. Observers of royal politics note that Charles, long regarded as introspective and deliberative, allowed his inner circle to lead this operation, stepping in only to authorize the final decree. And yet, the king's presence was felt in every comma of the October 17th announcement. Behind that restraint, however, lies a storm of private torment. For a father to disinherit his own son is not an act taken lightly, nor one done in isolation. But Charles, now 76 and facing persistent speculation about his health, appears determined to leave behind not a fractured institution, but a stabilized crown. What few see is that this purge was not merely about Andrew or Harry. It was about preparing the palace itself for the next chapter, one where legacy is no longer a matter of blood, but of belief. For Charles, the decision was more than personal heartbreak. It was a lesson drawn from a lifetime in waiting. As Prince of Wales for nearly 7 decades, he had seen the monarchy battered by divorce, scandal, death, and modern scrutiny. He had also witnessed the enduring myth of Queen Elizabeth II, a woman whose quiet constancy became the cornerstone of post-war British identity. In this final chapter of his reign, Charles is playing the long game. To cleanse the royal household of vulnerability and position William as the future monarch with zero ambiguity. In fact, insiders say Charles's decision to transfer the rod of equity and mercy and the golden spur was more than ceremonial, it was constitutional signalling. And in keeping with that tone, Charles issued no personal remarks, no interviews, no farewell words to Harry or Andrew. Instead, he let the institutions speak for him quietly, precisely, and unflinchingly. A senior courtier summed it up bluntly: the king understands that the crown survives because it acts, not because it feels. Oh, while William's public leadership grows sharper, it is Princess Catherine who has emerged as the monarchy's most trusted private strategist, the calm force behind palace transitions, the bridge between tradition and modernity. Since Harry's exit, Catherine has shouldered many of the ceremonial and charitable roles he once occupied. Military parades, Commonwealth youth programs, diplomatic dinners where once Harry stood, Catherine now moves with grace, strength, and institutional confidence. But her role goes beyond visibility. According to leaked accounts from within the Kensington offices, Catherine was a strong proponent of permanently reassigning royal duties to younger, non-controversial figures like Prince James of Wessex and Lady Louise. She also pushed for clearer boundaries between personal identity and public duty, a direct response to the chaos that followed Meghan and Harry's mixing of royalty and media. And, perhaps most notably, It was Catherine who encouraged William to form a long-term strategic council, a confidential advisory circle composed of courtiers, civil servants, military liaisons, and foreign policy specialists. The group meets monthly and reportedly functions as a shadow monarchy cabinet, shaping the next 10 years of royal evolution. One palace insider called it the most professionalization of the monarchy since George VI during World War II. Still, not all support the new order. Behind the pristine corridors and gold-trimmed drapery, there is an air of quiet mourning. Staff who once served Harry speak of his charisma, his accessibility, his everyman warmth. Some remain conflicted, emotionally loyal to the memory of the young prince who walked behind his mother's coffin, but professionally aligned with the crown's need for discipline. Even among members of the extended royal family, there are mixed feelings. The Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie, is said to have shed tears upon hearing of the final erasure of Archie and Lilibet's titles. She reportedly told a friend, "No child deserves to be caught in this, but the die is cast. Harry is out. Andrew is out. The crown has spoken not in anger, but in steel." As the palace redraws its succession chart and updates ceremonial roles, the royal family has entered what many are calling the geometry era, a term coined by British historian Caroline Marks to describe the streamlined, triangle-shaped power structure now forming. At the base, a loyal, duty-bound core of working royals: Anne, Edward, Sophie, James, and Louise. At the centre, the Prince and Princess of Wales, representing modernity, family, and institutional poise. At the summit, King Charles not actively reforming, but blessing the reforms carried out in his name. This structure is built for resilience, not legacy. It accepts that blood may be thicker than water, but it is loyalty, discipline, and silence that carry the crown forward. As the monarchy reshapes its future, one name has risen quietly, but unmistakably from the shadows of royal adolescence into the full light of duty: Prince James, Earl of Wessex. At just 17, the youngest grandson of Queen Elizabeth II was once considered a private figure shielded from the intense scrutiny that consumed his cousins. Yet in the wake of Prince Harry's formal erasure from the line of succession, it is James who now steps forward to occupy the space once held by a prince who walked away. But this is not merely a reassignment of duties. It is a symbolic rebirth, a generational reset, and a carefully choreographed return to tradition where service and silence matter more than celebrity and sentiment. Born to Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, James has grown up far from tabloid covers. His upbringing, orchestrated with deliberate modesty by his parents, was anchored in countryside life, school rugby matches, and holiday appearances at Balmoral. He was the only grandchild of the late Queen to attend her funeral in full military-style dress, a detail that did not go unnoticed by royal observers. Now, with the endorsement of King Charles, Princess Anne, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, James is being positioned not as a prince in exile, but as a prince reborn within the heart of the firm. Effective immediately, James will assume former ceremonial roles once handled by Prince Harry, including military patronages in the Royal Marines and the Commonwealth Youth Programme, represent the crown alongside Princess Catherine during state visits, particularly across Canada and New Zealand, where younger royal figures are considered essential to soft power diplomacy. Begin preparatory briefings from the Royal Household's Constitutional Affairs Office, a precursor to his likely future elevation to Duke of Edinburgh, a title once held by his grandfather, Prince Philip. His sister, Lady Louise, will also take on increased duties, primarily focused on the royal equestrian legacy, the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, and engagements across Scotland. The House of Wessex, once peripheral, is becoming the monarchy's moral core. To the public, James's emergence may feel like a neutral shift, a young man rising to the occasion, but within palace walls, it is a replacement, plain and deliberate. In role, in symbolism, in structure, James is replacing Harry. And this change is not just about logistics, it is about erasing the vacuum that Harry's departure left behind. Royal aides quietly refer to this process as rebalancing the corridor, returning symmetry to the public-facing side of the family. Where once William and Harry represented the future, now William and James do. But this new duo carries a different energy. William, the executive monarch in waiting, sharp and institutional. James, the quiet apprentice, loyal and untouched by controversy. As one former royal press secretary put it, James is not here to replace Harry in personality. He's here to restore what Harry erased, the chain of quiet continuity. This realignment has Catherine's imprint all over it. Behind every new public appearance James makes, from the Invictus-inspired youth ceremonies to the resumption of his first military visit in November, stands Catherine's hand, both literal and metaphorical. She has been appointed as his informal mentor, much as Princess Diana once was to a young William. Their first public outing together is scheduled for Remembrance Sunday at Whitehall, where James will walk behind the princess in full dress, laying a wreath for fallen young soldiers. Catherine is also said to have personally overseen his preparation for diplomatic etiquette, wardrobe protocol, and ceremonial speechwriting, a process Palace aides dubbed the Kensington Finishing School. The public has responded with a mixture of curiosity and cautious approval. Polls conducted by the Evening Standard and YouGov show that 67% of respondents support the reallocation of duties to James, citing the need for fresh energy with stable values. Among older Britons, particularly those who recall the turmoil of the 1990 seconds, James represents a nostalgic return to royal values: quiet service, public modesty, and family cohesion. Even critics of the monarchy have found James difficult to object to. He speaks rarely. He posts nothing. He has no Netflix deals, no memoirs in the works, no podcast teasers. He is, in the words of one commentator, exactly what Harry once was before the noise. With the recent transfer of two powerful royal relics to Prince William, the Rod of Equity and Mercy, and the Sovereign's Golden Spur, the institution is leaning heavily into ceremonial messaging. These relics, normally housed within the Tower of London's Crown Jewels display, were quietly brought to Windsor and placed in William's private possession under royal custody protocol, a move that traditionally signals readiness for transition. But the relics are more than ornaments. They represent values. The Rod of Equity and Mercy is a symbol of judicial fairness of rule, without tyranny. The Golden Spur is a symbol of martial honor, knighthood, loyalty, and defense of the realm. By transferring them to William and elevating James, the monarchy has closed the chapter on rebellion and scandal. In their place, it has opened a new chapter of legacy, apprenticeship, and order. Interestingly, while public attention has focused on Harry and Andrew losing their places in the line of succession, few have noted the titles that now float unassigned: the dukedoms of Sussex and York. Neither title has been formally reassigned. Neither is likely to be. Sources indicate they may remain dormant until Parliament discusses a possible constitutional amendment redefining eligibility for hereditary titles in the 21st century. Until then, they exist as ghost titles, empty vessels of privilege, waiting to be redefined or quietly retired. As the House of Windsor realigned itself with precision and symbolism, one figure stood conspicuously apart from the machinery of change: Queen Camilla. Observers close to palace dynamics noticed it immediately: the absence of her name from any of the official statements, her deliberate non-appearance during recent Privy Council briefings, and a noticeable reduction in her ceremonial duties since late September. Camilla, once front and center beside Charles at state events, now appeared only in curated photo ops, silent, composed, but distinctly marginalized. Sources close to Clarence House describe it as a soft withdrawal, not from the crown, but from influence. And according to multiple insiders, this withdrawal was not voluntary. It is widely believed that Princess Anne orchestrated a quiet containment of Camilla's influence over succession and ceremonial decisions. While Charles remains devoted to his wife, the recent wave of reforms, including the purging of Harry and Andrew from the royal line, was notably steered without Camilla's input. Palace aides point to a shift in tone following the summer. In July, Camilla reportedly attempted to interject on behalf of Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, urging that the daughters of Prince Andrew be spared from the wider fallout. Her plea, described as emotional but miscalculated, was firmly rebuffed by Anne, who is said to have replied with one sentence: "This isn't about favoritism, it's about function." After that, Camilla's attendance at working sessions dropped. Her name quietly disappeared from strategic drafts and correspondence. One courtier anonymously stated, "The Princess Royal does not view Camilla as a constitutional actor. She views her as a consort, and consorts don't write doctrine." At the heart of this restructuring is a philosophy that Anne has quietly promoted for over a decade. The monarchy must serve, not distract. Known within palace documents as the doctrine of functional nobility, Anne's model discards outdated notions of bloodline indulgence. Instead, it prioritizes constitutional clarity, public accountability, and the active separation of private scandal from public duty. Under this doctrine, there are no ceremonial passengers and no tolerance for figures who profit from the prestige of the crown without reinforcing its institutional value. Harry, in Anne's view, crossed that line. So did Andrew. And while Camilla has avoided personal scandal in recent years, her perceived interference in succession, debates especially concerning titles for her own children and grandchildren, made her a liability in the eyes of the new royal order. It would be false to say that Camilla has been exiled. She remains queen consort, formally crowned, and retains Charles's unwavering affection. But her sphere of influence has shrunk dramatically. Where once she joined state dinners, she now attends select luncheons. Where she once advised on patronage appointments, she now focuses solely on her charitable portfolio, primarily literacy and domestic violence initiatives. Most notably, Camilla no longer sits in on succession briefings, a role she had been informally invited to join during the first year of Charles's reign. The Privy Purge, as palace insiders nickname it, is not just about removing names, it's about tightening the gates of power. Anne now leads that inner circle, with William and Catherine as her natural successors in discipline and philosophy. The relationship between Princess Anne and Prince William has evolved into a quiet alliance, forged by mutual understanding of what the monarchy must become. Where Charles ruled with personal sentiment, Anne and William govern with strategic detachment. Their vision of royalty is shaped not by emotion, but by efficiency, clarity, and survival. In recent months, Anne has conducted private one-on-one mentoring sessions with William. Together, they've outlined a 1,000-day succession blueprint, a forward-looking plan that maps out the first 1,000 days of William's expected reign, a reduced number of working royals, modernized state rituals, and tighter constitutional boundaries between family and institution. This plan, still secret, but deeply embedded in current actions, is described as the monarchy's firewall against another Windsor crisis. As Anne ascends in influence and William consolidates authority, Camilla now serves a quieter, ceremonial purpose, the echo of a more romantic age, but not a participant in this institutional reset. In official photos, she still smiles, still stands beside the king, but her role is now one of presence, not power. And in this recalibrated order, that distinction matters more than ever. On the evening of October 17th, following the formal update to the Royal Succession Registry, a hush fell over Buckingham Palace, not one of mourning, but of measured relief. The purge was complete. The House of Windsor had redrawn its borders. From this moment forward, the royal family would stand leaner, clearer, and stripped of those whose names had become synonymous with scandal or rebellion. For all the emotional cost, there was a quiet conviction among the remaining senior royals. This was the only path forward. The monarchy, in its very essence, had chosen continuity over complication. At the centre of this renewed structure stands Prince William, no longer just an heir but a crown in waiting with sovereign authority being tested and gradually transferred. Over the past 6 months, William's calendar has been saturated with state briefings, foreign policy consultations, military ceremonial drills, and private audiences with the Archbishop of Canterbury. A pattern is emerging, subtle, deliberate. William signs off on foreign invitations before they reach Charles. William leads on digital modernization and Commonwealth youth initiatives. William now chairs monthly constitutional review meetings, a task once reserved solely for the sovereign. The transition is, in effect, already underway. As a former royal historian noted in The Times, Charles is not abdicating, but he is stepping aside inch by inch, handing the crown not in one gesture, but in a series of shadows. The future monarchy William will inherit is unlike the one his father or grandmother knew. There will be no forgiveness without function, no titles without duty. The age of soft indulgence of extended royal families protected by blood but immune to responsibility is over. And so, the final purge of October 2025 wasn't just about 2 names. It was a systemic closure of loopholes, eliminating ambiguity around who speaks for the crown, who receives taxpayer-funded protection, who carries ceremonial power, and who may inherit titles by association. The decisions made are intended to outlast personalities. As one senior advisor stated, "It's not about Harry or Andrew, it's about whoever comes next." In a symbolic gesture meant only for internal circulation, but later leaked to select members of the press, King Charles personally handed William the 2 most ancient objects of royal authority in a candlelit chapel ceremony at Windsor. The rod of equity and mercy, representing moral justice balanced by compassion. The sovereign's golden spur, a medieval relic symbolizing noble protection of the people. The gesture was not broadcast, nor recorded, but it sent an undeniable message. The king has entrusted the kingdom. This transfer was not simply symbolic. According to Royal Constitutional Protocol, the recipient of these items becomes operational monarch in waiting, empowered to act on behalf of the crown during state emergencies or royal incapacitation. It is the final step before coronation. Reaction to the purge across the United Kingdom and Commonwealth has been mixed but resolute. A joint poll by YouGov and Ipsos Mori revealed 74% of respondents agreed that royal status should be conditional upon continued public service. Only 16% believed Harry or Andrew should retain any formal privileges or titles. Among those aged 1835, support for a slimmed-down monarchy reached 81%. Public faith is now invested not in nostalgia, but in transparency and restraint. It is this new ethos that William, Catherine, and their emerging team now embody. In a final administrative move on October 21st, the royal household issued updated guidance, stating that no royal titles may be passed to or held by any individual not currently in the line of succession. This includes all courtesy titles, honorary dukedoms, or hereditary stylings previously extended by sovereign grace. Effectively, it seals the fate of Archie and Lilibet, whose brief window as prince and princess under Charles has closed without formal codification. It also ensures that no descendant of Prince Andrew will be eligible for ceremonial rank beyond their birthright surname. The monarchy is no longer a wide tree of branch after branch, it is a carefully pruned spine of purpose. In the coming months, focus will shift toward the crown's next chapter. The planning of William's coronation, anticipated sometime in 2026, a state visit to Australia and New Zealand with James and Louise, testing the waters of their expanded roles. The unveiling of a new royal charter, expected to redefine the relationship between the monarchy and modern media. Behind the marble walls and velvet tapestries of the palace, The remaining family members move in quiet unity. There are no whisper campaigns, no feuds aired on talk shows, only the faint echo of Queen Elizabeth II's guiding words. We must be seen to be believed. Now, at last, the royal family seems ready to be seen again, not as a fractured family, but as a functioning institution. The Purge of 2025 will be remembered not for who was cut, but for what was preserved, the crown's right to define itself. As the world spins faster, and traditions bend beneath the weight of modern scrutiny, the monarchy has chosen not to dissolve but to distill, to shed the excess, to defend the core. And in doing so, it may have rediscovered its purpose. The next chapter has been set. The page has turned. The crown, though, quieter remains.